Hi guys, Tracy here, and I'm going to scrapbook these 3 pictures from my trip to New York in the summer that just went by. And the Scraptastic Feel Again kit comes with a whole bunch of frames. Some of these frames are from Fancy Pants, the first 2 that are on those photos, and then some of the ones that are more square are from Ellie's Studio. That green one with 2 white blocks below it is from Ellie's Studio. And I was having a hard time getting the photos to fit. Basically, it was when I used the smaller photos that I had originally printed up, I was cutting off the I want you section of the chair that we were in, and I really wanted that to be part of the picture. So I reprinted them up. The rectangular ones are printed at 1.8 by 3, and the smaller square one of the outside of NBC Studios is printed at 2.5 by 2.5. And so I've just taken out a whole bunch of frames that I think I might be going to use. I think I'm going to fill some with pattern paper and fill some with photos. And then this heart-shaped metal tray is something my mom recently gave me, and I'm using it for almost like a short list of embellishments that I might use this time. And so that just allows me to pull out some of the ones that I want to use on this layout and then leave the rest behind. It's always easier to work with fewer things. I can always come back to my bigger trays and dig through the stuff again, but I like to kind of have some embellishments put aside. Now I'm just looking through the pattern paper and through the cardstock that came in the kit. I'm going to pick out this piece of aqua teal-y type of bluey greeny color, and that's the one that I'm going to use. But I also pulled out a black just because it's been a while since I've done a layout on a black background, so I was thinking about doing that, but it's not going to work with this particular layout, so maybe another time. So now I'm just going to cut that frame and put it on both sides, and thinking about using some other frames just to kind of mix it up a little bit. So the yellow and the cream and the green with 2 white blocks under it, all those frames are from Ellie's Studio, and all the other remaining frames on the page are from Fancy Pants, and they all came in the kit. Snapping a quick picture just because I'm going to be taking this all apart in order to put pattern paper inside of these frames, and I don't want to forget how I had it. So for now, I'm just setting the papers there. I'll go back and glue them all on at the end. And I'm just using my scissors to rough cut the pattern paper to fit. So this paper with the arrows is by Echo Park from the Head Over Heels collection. That first piece that I use, the diagonal and white and red stripe, is from crepe paper from the Love Notes collection. This paper with pink bands on it, is bands of color, is also from Crepe Paper Love Notes collection. And I'm going to use the back side of this as well. And that was too plain, so I'm going to go back and add a pattern on that one. So here I have, this is also from the Crepe Paper Love Notes collection, and this is the chevron music paper with pink pattern. I love that. And there, I just flipped that one for the heart, the bokeh hearts on the back side of it. So I'm really liking how this is coming together. This is really the structure of the layout. And now for all of these frames that are going to hold my photos, I am using this Crepe Paper Love Notes collection green paper on the background, and I'm going to put it on all of them. I just haven't done it yet. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually just changing this one up because I wanted to use the lighter colors instead of the darker. So I just took another part of that same piece of paper, and that way I had more pink and less red on that one. And right here, this was one of my favorite parts of, well, my favorite part of that frame was the little heart this phrase that was on it, and I was going to be cutting it off. So what I decided to do was to cut it off right now so I didn't forget about it, and frame it, or mat it I guess, on a little piece of pattern paper that I cut into a banner with a fishtail. Then I just stapled it together with my tiny attacher, and it becomes a little embellishment that I'll use on that frame. So this is the structure of the layout. I have it all laid out right now, and now I just need to kind of assemble it, and then I can do my embellishing. So I'm going to outline the insides and outsides of all of these frames. So this is going to take a while, so I'm sorry that if this gets a little bit boring. I'm also going to use some washi tape just to stick the pattern paper onto the frame on the back side. And for this I am using a Faber-Castell Pitt pen in the fine tip. I buy those markers in a package of 3. It comes with a medium point. Actually, it might come in a 4-pack with a brush point, a medium point, a fine, and a super fine. And I love those markers. They're great for mixed media because they will mark over anything. So you can like write right over over like papers and stuff, but you can also write over media like paint and glaze and that sort of thing. So I am backing all of the frames that have photos in them, so that would include the NBC Studios photo, which really floats around a lot in that frame, as well as these 2 photos, which don't float all that much, but there's a teensy weensy line. The photo doesn't quite fill up the frame, and so I did want to have something in the background so that the background paper wouldn't be showing through, because the background paper is quite a bit darker than anything else on the layout, and I don't want it peeking through there. So I'm just going to use that crepe paper, Love Notes paper, for just so that that picture doesn't, just so that there's not like distracting lines behind the picture, if that makes any sense. So there's that one. I'm going to do the same with this one. And I love this frame. I absolutely love those gray diagonal lines, the tiny little ones. I am outlining the scallops. I hate outlining scallops, so that wasn't all that much fun for me. So again, it's just rough cut. Like the paper is not very nicely cut, but you're not going to see any of that. And I just wasn't feeling like using a trimmer today, so I was just using my scissors for all of the cutting on this one. So I'm really liking how this is looking. The frames that I'm outlining from Fancy Pants, they have a really nice texture to them, and the marker makes a nice kind of textured line along it too, so that looks nice. I like how that was an additional extra touch that I wasn't expecting. So one of the goals I had for this layout was to fill up the page. I've been doing a lot of negative space layouts, like just layouts that have a tiny little picture and a bunch of papers right underneath of it, and then lots of big space, and on the 12 by 12 layouts. And so what I decided to do for this one was to really fill up the whole page and make as much use out of the whole 12 by 12 canvas as I could. And so I'm trying to do that with these frames. I figured I could probably fill up most of the page with these frames. I could have filled it up even more, but I didn't want it to look too busy. So there are a couple of empty spaces on this layout, but not many. So this is actually one of my favorite washi tapes. I love the colors on this roll, and there's just so much that comes in a roll of washi tape that I really don't mind using it for this kind of a purpose where you're not going to see it. So this is another Ellie's Studio frame, like the white one that I did with the red and white stripe paper under it. These are both, the yellow one and that white one are both from Ellie's Studio. And yeah, I'm liking how that looks. The reason I chose such a plain paper for this one is that the frame itself is quite distracting. It has like a yellow doily on it, so I didn't want it to be too, I didn't want that yellow doily to get lost. Ugh, scallops. More outlining scallops. If there had been another choice for a frame for this layout, I would have used it, but I think I had already used one of them, so I didn't have a choice but to use this one. So, and I had to double outline it because I double outlined everything else. So the pattern paper that I chose for this frame is a really bold one. It's that chevron, and I needed a bold pattern paper to stand up to all the patterns that is on this, that's on the frame. It's quite a detailed pattern, quite busy. There we go. And that's just that piece of paper I had there is just my ingredients list that I keep it beside me as I'm narrating. Oh, that's way too much contrast. So I definitely won't be using that. But I thought that it might look nice, kind of like a tone on tone with a white background. And so I'm going to lay it all out and think about using this kind of stone colored background. But it's just so bland. I mean, it looks nice. It would have been nice. I couldn't decide, so what I did was I laid it all out and I took a picture, and then I laid it all out on the other background and took a picture. And now I'm going to, because I can't decide in real life, I'm going to look back and forth at the pictures and decide, and that helped me to decide. Sometimes just seeing it from a slightly different angle, when you look at a picture, it's almost like you're not looking through your own eyes, and so it gives you a bit more objectivity for deciding. When I really can't decide, I'll take a picture and then look and decide from the picture instead of from the layout that's right in front of me. So once I had this layout structured, I decided fairly early on that half of my title would go up in that top left-hand corner, the other half of my title would go in the bottom right-hand corner. I wasn't sure what my title would be, but here I decided to call it Goofing Around at NBC Studios. And because this scrapbooking kit comes with a package of letters that are the exact same font in two different colors. I love, love, love these letters. It's called Love Notes. They're thickers and I love them. I want a million packages of these. I love them. Gonna have to go shopping and buy some of those. So I wanted to put at on the heart that came in the Thickers pack. There were these cute little foam hearts, but that's the wrong color of yellow. I want it to be the same color as the yellow letter stickers. So I pulled out these Kelly Perky, those first letters were Prima. I pulled out these Kelly Perky letter stickers in cream, and they're perfect. I love how they look. They're almost exactly the same color as that buttery yellow color that the Thickers are. So when I first put this title together, it's kind of making a little bit of a triangle with studio being the longest word and at being the shortest word. And I don't want it to be a triangle. I want it to kind of look like it's flowing through the layout. So if you can imagine a zigzag that goes in Goofing Around and then through those two frames and then zigzag back and then come out to the other side, that's kind of how I wanted it to look. So I'm going to use these arrows to help me get that zigzag feel going on. So the arrows are going in towards those top frames and then they're coming out on the other side of the bottom frames. I don't know if zigzag is exactly the right word to use there, but anyhow, that's the word I'm using because I can't think of a better one. So, of course, I don't like lining things up and I hate measuring. So this is really the most annoying part of doing a layout for me. And that's why I often don't use these kinds of elements on layouts. In this case, I really wanted to use it. So I'm putting up with the idea of having to measure despite the fact that I hate measuring. So my dad was a carpenter and he was all about measuring, so you'd think that I would be a good measurer, but I'm not. I always estimate and then I'm always wrong. I'm like, yeah, that one is supposed to be down. I couldn't decide if I was going to move one up or move the other one down. And now it turns out that I have been centering all of these, or I guess, measuring all of these based on one frame that was on there crooked. And so when you put the first frame on crooked, all the other frames that are lined up against it end up being crooked too. So I did fix it. I must have done it off camera because, no, I'm going to fix it in a little while. Yeah, so things are coming together quite nicely. They are a little crooked and I am going to fix it, but it'll probably always be a little bit crooked, but it was just looking very crooked for a while there. So that's how I'm going to do that. I'm finally going to put that photo on. I wasn't sure if I was going to use a clip or something there. So now I'm just going to trim up all of the frames that were hanging over the edges, just using my scissors to do that. You could use your trimmer if you wanted to get it really straight. And then I just had to go back and add some glue because some things were a little bit floppy after cutting. I ended up cutting some of the glue off. So I just put that sticker down in place so that it's coming out from under the last frame in the series of frames, and that gives me a really nice straight line that I can use to line up my title. And then the top line gets lined up with the bottom, and so that's nice and convenient. It makes it really easy to line it all up. Now this arrow sticker is going to kind of disappear under. I'm just lining it up with my ruler just to make sure that it's even, and here's where I'm starting to notice that there's something not straight about this layout. I'm going to go ahead and put on the title because I've measured this sticker and it is straight. So again, I'm just lining up these stickers with the sticker below. It gives them a nice ledge to stand on. Whoops. Those O's are falling down. See them? So I had to scooch them up a teensy weensy bit. They're still not up quite enough, but I might fix that now that I see it on the video. I see that it's still not quite right. So this is the structure of the layout at this point, and I'm going to try to fix it. And I'm measuring and noticing that the frames on the right side of the page are higher than the frames on the left side of the page, or vice versa. And here's where I realize, oh, that frame is crooked, and then I centered everything around it. So once I straightened out that frame, see how it kind of hangs off the page there at the bottom right hand corner of that frame? I'm going to trim it off now because it hangs over, and that makes everything line up a little bit better. So if I had cut that frame in half with a trimmer, that problem would not have happened. So that is my laziness coming back to bite me. So that's something to keep in mind. I just used a piece of dimensional foam. I used the Stampin' Up! Dimensional adhesive to pop up the edge of that banner so that half of it is flat on the paper and half of it is sticking up. Then I very carefully outlined the banner because it was already on the layout, so I didn't want to go off the edge. I really want to use that word silly somewhere, and I'm thinking about using some other words on this, but I think I'm just going to stick with the word silly. And so here I'm just going through those embellishments that I had picked out and fishing out anything that is going to work with this. I'm staying away from that black piece because it's just too heavy. But I'm pulling out just a couple of little pieces of transparency and little tags and tickets and whatnot. I've got some ormolu tags and stuff. I'll tell you what everything is as I attach it on to the layout. That Kiss Me is from Ellie's Studio, and thought about putting a tag there, but that's too much. The pattern with the arrows is pretty patterned already. Okay, so I'm going to start with the Kiss Me, which is by Ellie's Studio, as I already mentioned, and I used a pop dot for that. Now I'm going to use my tiny attacher. The You and Me is from Ormolu, and the ticket is from Fancy Pants. And now I'm just doing some journaling. It said my soulmate, and so I put traveling with my above it because I'm traveling with my soulmate. I had to change my staples again. I keep running out of those. So there we go. And I'm just going to crisscross right where you would have put a string on the tag. And I used some ATG adhesive here, which totally shows, and so I'm going to go back and fix that a little bit later. That piece of transparency is from crepe paper. Here's another crepe paper transparency. We got a whole set of them in the kit, and I'm just cutting a right angle, just freehand with my scissors, even though you'd think I had learned that cutting freehand doesn't work on this layout, but anyways, to make it look like it's tucked behind the frame. And I managed to do that without causing any problems. That's an Ormolu banner there that I just stapled on, and now this is one of the wood veneers that came in the kit. So here I've layered a crepe paper transparency with an Ormolu tag and wood veneer from the kit. Here I'm noticing that just is bugging me. Sometimes I leave that kind of stuff and sometimes I fix it. In this case, it was bugging me so much. I just used my fingers to rub the adhesive off. There was a little bit of residue, so I'm using a baby wipe. It's taken me a bit of time to do that, isn't it? I don't remember it taking that long. Oh yeah, and then I got my little rubber thing that I use for getting glue globs off of stuff. And then I stapled it in place, and I like it better stapled anyways. It just kind of, the other piece was stapled on, so it kind of mimics a little bit. I'm going to go through and add some little enamel shapes every here and there. And these are from my mind's eye, and they came in the kit too. I'm just using a red marker to outline that heart. It looked like it needed a little something, but I didn't want to put an enamel dot on there because it was too it would be too distracting. I'm going to put that Ormolu flare badge right there, but I haven't committed to it yet. And now I just have to decide what I'm going to do in that top one. And because it's the plain one, I want to do some journaling on it, and I've decided I'm going to adhere the word silly and then journal around it instead of journaling and then putting silly on, which makes better sense. So I'm going to make a mistake here with the rub-on, and then I'm going to fix it, so you'll get to see that. So see how that L is broken? You'll see it in a second. It's already broken. I kind of wrinkled up the rub-on before it was adhered on, and that part just kind of peeled off. So there's most of the word silly, and it does have that part of the L is broken. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing my journaling, so sorry about that. I thought you'd be able to see it better. And now I'm going to outline with a slick writer. It's actually not a, it's, you could do it with a slick writer from American Crafts, but I prefer using Stettler Lumocolor pens just because I love them, so I have a lot of them. And now I'm just outlining as if that L was entirely there. So I see how I went around the gap in the L and pretended that there was no gap. And now I'm going to go back with my gel pen. It's a Uniball Signo gel pen and fill in the white. And you can't even tell. You can tell a little bit here because that white gel pen is still shiny, but now that it's all dried, you can't tell at all. And now I just grabbed the sticker sheet that came, or not the sticker sheet, the stamp set that came in the kit. And I couldn't find any stamps that I wanted to use. See that the below in me, there's that space. I just wanted to fill that in with something. And so I grabbed these two stamps from a previous kit. It's from the July This Life Noted. Oops. Whoa. Extreme close-ups of a person's hair is not so nice. Sorry about that, guys. um, yeah, then I immediately didn't like it because it's a very, very black image. So I'm just showing you it's from Scraptastic This Life Noted July. And those hearts are going to drive me crazy because they just pop out at me too much. And they're sort of competing with the word silly and competing a little bit with the goofing around title. And they certainly overpower the picture perfect that's written below them. So I'm doing some journaling there where I planned to do a little bit of extra journaling. It just says, we were early for the studio tour, so we hung out in the store. And now I'm going to cover those stamped hearts with enamel hearts. And because they're not black, they're not going to, even though it's exactly the same shape and exactly the same size, they don't take away so much because they're not black. And I had to put the dot on the exclamation point because the enamel dot hit it, and then it looked like it was bring out the silly in Mel. So I had to put the dot so it didn't look like Mel. So here are the close-ups. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I don't know if I have much more to say about this. You can see my outlining is, you know, the difference that the double outlining makes. It makes it look just kind of really casual and sketchy looking, which is the look I was going for. So. And what the outlining does is it brings all of those frames, which otherwise look very different from one another, and brings them all together. Because I had frames from two different companies and I had paper from two different companies and a bunch of embellishments, and I just wanted everything to gel and look like it belonged together, and outlining can really do that for you. So again, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope you all have a really great scrappy week.